Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the Autotech TalkRobot stage. My name is Georgia Francis King. I'm the Ideas Editor of Quartz, and I will be taking you on this journey today. Today we'll be talking about the machines, the transport models, and the connected technologies that are going to quite literally take us into the future. But before we get into our first speakers, I wanted to set the stage a little bit, although it is already wonderfully set. So, my job at Quartz is I'm the Ideas Editor. But Ideas Editor, what does that mean? It's my job. We get the slides on? I'll just keep going. It's my job to be able to talk to these people about the future. Instead of having all of my own reporters, I work with physicists and scientists and academics and NBA players and musicians, all on what they think the future is going to look like. Because the future isn't going to be this one person or this one person's idea that will win out. The future is going to be an amalgamation of all these different things. So these op-eds, they appear on qz.com. We also have a series of newsletters that you can download. We have an app that you can then look at some of the objects that we talk about in these stories. So for an example, this is the Cassini here, which is thrown up in AR. When I went to the NASA Ames Center in Pasadena, I was lucky enough to see the real Cassini, so I got real meta and threw up the AR Cassini in front of the real Cassini. Just nerd's dream. But when we're considering how do we want to talk about the future? Because people have a responsibility to talk about the ways that we're living in the past and the present in a realistic way. But then there's also the issue of the future. Because the future often is steamed as this like dystopian, utopian narrative that's like one thing's going to battle out against the other. But anyone that tells you that they know what the future is going to be is incorrect. The Elon Musks of the world, you only need to look at Tesla prices to know that that isn't as predictable as what you think it is. But still, we're obsessed with these narratives. We're looking for the snake oil that's going to solve all of our problems. We want to have the biofuel that's going to stop us from having to rely on fossil fuels. We want the magic pill we'll be able to take so we can eat as many Portuguese tarts as what we want and not gain weight. We want that algorithm that's going to totally eradicate inherent biases in hiring processes. But there's a problem with that. Because when we say that only one thing is going to fix all of our problems, then often we can create more problems than that one problem that we solve in the first place. So here's a headline that I ran earlier this year, which is kind of talking about how if we only are ever seeking that one thing, then that will override our other opinions of others. Then there's the dystopian narrative. Now, these are like the clickbait headlines that for some reason people love clicking on to know about the imminent death of the universe. But we always want to find a villain. We always want to find that person that we can blame, whether it's populism or Silicon Valley tech VCs or gluten is a fun one right now. But these also don't do us very good because they don't give us solutions often to the problems that they're talking about. And when that happens, you end up with something like this. Hollywood loves a villain. Hollywood loves romanticizing these horrible versions of the future and selling it back to us because they know that this stuff sells. Personally, I hate horror movies, but some of these have actually come a little bit more true than what you think. So Hal, here, down in the bottom right corner, we know that a lot of the people who were pioneering early voice technology used women's voices because we are more likely to listen to a woman than a man. That's been proven. But a second part of it is so many people were terrified after seeing Space Odyssey and hearing Hal that they were worried that if they had a male voice coming out of their phone, that no one would want to speak to it. Some of the other movies have actually predicted our dystopian futures quite well. Minority Report, Tom Cruise got some stuff right. That film holds up. Recommend that you watch it again. So we end up with this like duality, right? Utopian visions, dystopian visions. On one side, we have the happy, smiley, sunny face. And the other side, the giant squid that's going to kill us. But we need both of these things. We can't just go forward pretending that one isn't going to be able to cancel out the other. But the difference is, if we can say that if we do A, B, C, we're going to end up with D, the utopian vision. Or if we say if we don't do X, Y, we'll end up with Z. That's a positive way to talk about the dystopian vision. So basically you're thinking about, is this the future that I want to run toward? Or is it the version of the future that I want to run away from? Both of these things have the same trajectory. They both force us forward on this positive path, but it just depends on where you think that energy is coming from. I've recently been doing a project called What Happens Next. We're 7 chapters into a 10-chapter project on QZ.com. So when I was looking at what kind of versions of the future did I want to portray, I wanted to make sure that we weren't just talking about the richest, whitest people in the most glistening cities with all of their smart vehicles and stuff. I wanted to talk about a version of the future that was going to affect the most people. We collaborated on a series of short documentaries with Retro Report. And what we end up with is all of these different chapters that are kind of trying to pull together a collective vision of the future. A lot of the essays that we use, a lot of the parts of the videos, don't actually agree with one another because the future is going to be a conversation. So for an example, these are 2 pieces from the future of food. The first piece is about GMO, because GMO is one of those things that we just inherently don't feel very good about. Something tells us that we're not meant to like it. But in reality, we've been genetically modifying our food for centuries and centuries and centuries. It starts when strawberry plant number 1 tastes better than strawberry plant number 2, so we're going to breed 2 of these things together. We've just got a lot more accurate at how we are making those genetic modifications. But then I wanted to totally contrast that with someone else. So we had Fred is like organic food god, talking about our soil and how important soil is, because there's only a finite amount of soil in the world that we're going to be able to generate in our lifetime. Once we screw that up, it's over. But then let's put some technology in there. So Brandon Alexander is the CEO of a company called Iron Ox, who have completely automated farming. And then I talked to Isha Dattar, who is the executive director of New Harvest, about cellular agriculture and how it's probably more likely that the burger that we're going to eat will be created in something that looks like a brewery rather than a traditional farm. So in the end, we often say that history is written by the victorious, but I believe that the future is written by all of us. So with that, we're going to be going into our first couple